On July 19, 2024, the world witnessed a musical detonation that no one saw coming, not because it was sudden, but because it was silent. Park Jimin, global superstar and BTS member, released Hyuk, the lead single from his second studio album Muse, with no teasers, no countdowns, no hashtags, and most disturbingly, no presents. The public narrative was quick to fill in the blanks. Jimin had enlisted in the military months earlier, and the quiet release was simply circumstantial. But now, a year later, disturbing patterns have emerged. And they all point to one man, Bang Si-hyuk. Was Hyuk a masterstroke of strategic genius, or the silent rewriting of a story that was never his to tell, the unnerving symmetry of whose rollout is not coincidental? It was surgical. In an industry fueled by noise, teaser images, viral trends, digital interactions, Jimin's absence was louder than any shout. And still, the track skyrocketed. Who reached #1 on the Billboard Global 200, remained on the Billboard Hot 100 for 33 weeks, and infiltrated playlists worldwide with uncanny persistence. But behind the statistics was a vacuum, not just of artist presence, but of authorship. If Jimin wasn't steering this ship, who was? An insider now claims that the entire Muse rollout was orchestrated not by Jimin, but by Bang Si-hyuk, the man often hailed as the architect behind BTS's rise. And yet, in this instance, his presence was ghostly, never credited, never addressed. Why would Bang mastermind such a dominant campaign and deny credit? And more importantly, what did he stand to gain from sidelining Jimin? The idea that Hyuk was merely a posthumous echo of Jimin's preparation before military enlistment is no longer enough to explain the level of orchestration behind its success. A performance, allegedly pre-recorded, aired on The Tonight Show just 3 days after the release. It was surgically produced, stripped of spectacle, and devastatingly lonely. Jimin stood alone in darkness, under flickering lights, singing to no one. It wasn't a performance, it was a message. And now, observers are asking whether that message was even his. The timeline is damning. Sources indicate that Hyuk was finalized months before the rest of Muse, allegedly at Bang's insistence. The single was sealed in a production vault far in advance, while the rest of the album remained in flux.
But why?
Why rush Hyuk if there was no urgency? Why isolate it from the creative arc of the album? The answer may be chilling, because Jimin was never intended to participate in the album's release. From there, the machinery took over. HYB's promotional arm executed a campaign that was both emotionally precise and strategically impersonal. No live streams, no fan tweets, no via live interactions, just precision. Global influencers seeded the track into trend cycles. Music critics received advanced copies with curated narratives. Streaming platforms algorithmically favored the track, all without a word from Jimin. His voice moved the world, but his presence was erased. The silence wasn't circumstantial, it was deliberate, and that changes everything. Bang Si-hyuk's legacy as a visionary is well documented. But when that vision crosses the line into control, into narrative manipulation, questions must be asked. Hyuk wasn't just released, it was deployed. Like a product test, like a case study. Could an artist remain commercially dominant without participating in their own campaign? Could the system replace the individual? The answer, terrifyingly, is yes. And Hyuk is the proof point, one Reddit user noted. They treated Hyuk like a test product. They wanted to see if the machine could replace the man. That machine, of course, was Bang's. The implication is devastating. Muse may not have been Jimin's triumph. It may have been Bang's experiment. This isn't conjecture. This is pattern recognition. Jimin's first solo album face was raw, chaotic, human. It had flaws, live stream confessions, stuttered laughs, and teary eyes. It felt real. But Muse was pristine, emotionless in its execution, disturbingly perfect. Every visual was manicured, every press release translated, Every campaign pre-packaged and globally synchronized. But perfection in art often signals control, not freedom, and so the question arises, whose perfection was this? There's another layer. The song's title itself. Who? A simple word. A devastating one. Who is speaking? Who is missing? Who is controlling the message? Thematically, it echoes throughout the campaign. Jimin's physical and emotional absence allowed an opportunistic vacuum to be filled. Into that silence stepped Bang. Industry whispers now suggest who was never meant to be an expression of Jimin's personal journey. It was chosen for its global accessibility, its emotional generality. It was engineered for universality, a product of surgical design, not spontaneous emotion. Even its heartbreak, many now believe, was algorithmically calculated. Music critics praised its cinematic sadness, its spectral quality. But when viewed through the lens of manipulation, that sadness turns cold. It no longer feels like sorrow. It feels like simulation. One source claims Bang ordered Who to be prioritized above the rest of the album. Why? He said it would be important, they recall. But he never said why. That decision, made in the shadows, now casts long echoes. What if the goal was always to prove that the artist is no longer necessary? That the machine, the system, can replicate impact without soul? The performance on Fallon is the smoking gun. Jimin, recorded in advance, stands alone. No dancers, no spotlight, no direct gaze into the camera, just shadows. The symbolism is unavoidable. An artist reduced to a vessel, emptied of intent, made to sing a song without context. And the camera moves on. Where is the real Jimin? Muse, in name, suggests inspiration. But what if Jimin was never the muse, only the medium? What if the album wasn't about his story, but about proving a theory? That emotional impact can be reverse engineered? That personal resonance can be commodified? This is not just a story of control. It's a story of erasure. The more success Who achieved, the less credit Jimin seemed to receive. Headlines praised the innovation of K-pop's global machine. Analysts applauded HYB's new-gen marketing. But rarely did anyone say the name Jimin without attaching an asterisk of absence. He was there, but only as a soundbite, not as a person. This recontextualizes every moment. The critical acclaim, the chart success, the global virality. If Jimin did not guide it, then who did? And why has that person remained silent? Bang Hyuk's fingerprints are everywhere, but blurred. He's long mastered the art of visibility without exposure. His silence now functions not as neutrality, but as denial. And for those who followed Jimin's journey, from lie to serendipity, from face to muse, the shift is undeniable. Something was taken, something essential, something irreplaceable. The artist's voice was used. But was it heard? Jimin's artistry has always been about intimacy. But Muse feels like a wall, carefully designed, meticulously curated, unreachable. In it, Jimin sings, but his silence outside the music deafens. His laughter, once spontaneous in live streams, is missing. His handwritten notes, once cryptic but sincere, are gone. His interaction with fans has become mediated, if not entirely removed. This is not evolution. This is substitution. Fans now ask, was Muse truly Jimin's? Or was it Bang's mirror of Jimin, a reflection, not a reality? And if it was the latter, what else has been rewritten? The deeper you dig, the colder it gets. The warmth of face is gone. In its place is a calculated monument. Stunning, impressive, hollow, and so the questions pile up. Not who released the song, but why it was released that way. Not who promoted it, but why Jimin's voice was filtered through silence. Not who benefited, but why Jimin disappeared from the narrative he created. This is not just a controversy. This is an indictment, because if Bang Hyuk truly orchestrated this from the shadows, without credit, without acknowledgement, and without consent, then Muse is not just an album. It's a case study in power, silence, and ownership. It's a question mark carved into the heart of K-pop, and that question remains: what is the cost of success when the artist no longer owns their story? Park Jimin once said that his art was an extension of his heart. But what happens when that heart is repackaged, polished, and sold back to the world under someone else's name? In the echo of Who, the answer is still missing, but the silence is starting to scream. As we trace the echo of Who beyond its sonic achievement and into the veins of its controversial rollout, a far more disturbing question arises. What if none of this was ever about the music? What if Who is less a song and more a symbol, not of artistry, but of orchestration? And in this layered confusion, the public must now ask themselves a question as confronting as it is urgent. Was this real? The narratives that have emerged, of Jimin's voice being harnessed in his absence, of Hyuk allegedly steering a silent global campaign, of Muse being executed with machine-like precision, all originate from fragmented digital sources. These claims do not stem from a verified dossier, nor from official statements. They are stitched together from TikTok analysis threads, YouTube commentary breakdowns, Reddit speculation, and Twitter discourse storms. And yet, their coherence is chilling. But does coherence imply truth? Or simply the illusion of it? This is where skepticism becomes not optional, but essential. As readers, viewers, and participants in this cultural moment, we must demand more than emotional resonance. We must demand verifiable context. Are we dissecting a calculated corporate strategy, or are we merely consuming a narrative engineered by the virality of unverified information? If Who was, in fact, a project commandeered by Hyuk to test the boundaries of artist attachment, then we must question what precedent this sets. Could the industry now normalize the commodification of absence? Will artists in military service, or any hiatus, become templates for silent but profitable releases, stripped of ownership and agency? However, we must not overlook a darker possibility, that all of this, every whisper of control, every theory of manipulation, every pixel of suspicion, is itself a manufactured spectacle, a hoax with no author, no center, but endless momentum. What if Who was released quietly, organically, and sincerely, and what followed was a web of sensationalist interpretations, fueled by a public desperate for deeper meaning? Is it possible that we are projecting conspiracy onto coincidence? Critical reflection demands discipline. It is not enough to ask who orchestrated this. We must also ask, why do we believe what we believe? Is our interpretation based on data or drama? Have we examined primary sources, or have we allowed edited clips, translated tweets, and aesthetic analysis videos to dictate our understanding? Consider the power of suggestion. A single TikTok with ominous background music and a speculative caption can ignite global doubt. A single YouTube thumbnail featuring a red-circled image and the phrase "exposed" can alter public opinion. A single viral tweet containing fragments of truth alongside unverified claims can shape entire narratives, and yet, none of these are peer-reviewed. None of these are held to standards of factual accountability. None of these answer to the consequences they create. This is not to dismiss the emotional impact of Who, nor to discredit the passionate communities that have raised these questions. But emotion cannot replace evidence. Suspicion is not confirmation, and virality does not equal validity. So ask yourself, do you believe Hyuk truly silenced Jimin's authorship? Or do you believe this theory was constructed from the very silence it claims to expose? Is it plausible that Hybe, a corporation with unparalleled access to data and global markets, would prioritize product over person, even if that person is a beloved global icon? Yes, it is plausible. But is it proven? Do we mistake strategic silence for sinister intention? Even the visual elements of Who, the solitary performance, the faceless staging, the absence of direct gaze, can be read in multiple ways. As artistic minimalism, as emotional commentary, or as evidence of suppression. But which is true? Or are all of them false, shaped by the lens through which we view them? And here lies the core dilemma. When the same images can evoke opposite meanings, the viewer becomes the author. In this way, perhaps who is not a song, but a mirror. And in that mirror, we do not see Jimin. We see ourselves. Are we imposing narrative where there is none? To consider who a hoax would be too simplistic. But to consider every suspicion about it as fact would be equally reckless. Instead, we must live in the tension, in the uncertainty, in the ambiguity that defines our hyper-connected media environment. Because when speculation masquerades as journalism, when fan theories eclipse primary evidence, when virality becomes the arbiter of truth, we lose more than clarity. We lose agency. So we ask again, was Jimin's absence an injustice or an inevitability? Was Bang's Hyuk an architect or an apparition? Did Who represent a revolution in music marketing or a desperate attempt to fill an emotional void with manufactured controversy? Or perhaps, most dangerously, have we been so trained to expect manipulation that we can no longer recognize authenticity even when it's right in front of us? Every reader, every viewer, every fan must now decide where they stand. But before you conclude, ask yourself, what do you know? And what have you only heard? What do you feel? And what can you prove? Let this not be a moment of passive consumption, but of active reflection. Because in a digital world where silence is dissected and ambiguity weaponized, your skepticism is not just protection, it is responsibility. And Who, whatever it truly is, may never give you the answer. But perhaps the real question, the one that haunts the void left by this entire spectacle, is not who made this happen. It is why did we believe it did?